On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank.
Welcome to this special edition of the African Union Journal, your weekly rendezvous on news around the African Union. In this edition, we focus on the steady progress of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the growing momentum behind Africa's economic integration through Bourses Africa 2026 in Lomé, Togo. We also explore the continent's drive to harness artificial intelligence and homegrown technologies to transform key sectors despite persistent infrastructure and skills challenges, from trade and competition policies to free movement across borders and industrial ambitions. This edition highlights an Africa determined to strengthen cooperation, innovation, and sustainable development. From May 18 to 20, 2026, Lomé hosted the third edition of Bourses Africa 2026, a continental meeting dedicated to trade, investment, and African economic integration. Organized by the Togolese government and the AFCFTA Secretariat, the forum brought together policymakers, investors, and economic stakeholders around a common goal to accelerate intra-African trade and strengthen local production. Christian Bellabo.
Backed by 55 member states of the African Union, including 54 that have already signed its founding agreement, the African Continental Free Trade Area brings together more than 1.4 billion people with a combined gross domestic product estimated at over $3.4 trillion, making it the world's largest free trade area in terms of participating countries. Yet, despite this enormous potential, intra-African trade remains limited. According to the 2025 Africa Integration Report, intra-African trade accounted for only 15% of the continent's export in 2023. In Lomé, Togo, nearly 1,400 participants met in Bourses Africa 26 from May 18 to 20, 2026, focusing on several priorities, including industrialization, digital trade, African payment systems, logistics, and trade financing.
The question of how does Africa engage during this moment? Indeed, we are talking about investment-led trade. We need investments from other parts of the world. We need transfer of technology. We need transfer of knowledge in order for this huge market to actually run and really harm, if as it were, so as to ensure that we create ourselves our own opportunities.
Bourses Africa 2026 takes place in a context marked by geopolitical tensions, tightening global trade conditions, and reorganization of international trade flows. In response to these changes, several African economies are accelerating regional integration efforts in order to strengthen intra-African trade and reduce external dependence. However, this momentum continues to be hindered by non-tariff barriers, high transport costs, logistical deficiencies, and limited access to financing. These constraints particularly affect small and medium-sized enterprises, widely regarded as the main drivers of the continent's economic transformation.
The issue of the access to finance, you will find that the protocol on women and youth in trade, it actually provides commitments that our member states have taken in order to make sure that they provide the necessary funding in a structured way to make sure that the private sector also gets to de-risk some of these challenges that the small and medium enterprises and women enterprises and youth enterprises face. You need to de-risk.
From May 18 to 20, 2026, Bourses Africa 2026 in Lomé, Togo brought together 30 member states through exhibition spaces dedicated to African products, innovation, and expertise, while 122 companies participated in business meetings and continental economic exchange platforms. African trade integration also continues to progress steadily. To date, 49 African states have ratified the AfTA agreement, while 50 countries have launched national implementation strategies.
Gathered in Lomé on May 19, 2026 as part of intra-Africa 2026, African leaders, economic regulators and international partners launched the inaugural AFCFTA conference on competition policy and law. At the heart of the discussions was the construction of an integrated African market capable of combining free trade, economic regulations and consumer protection on a continental scale. Sarah J.
The inaugural AFCFTA Conference on Competition Policy and Law opened on 19 May 2026 in Lomé, Togo, around a central issue, putting competition at the service of African market integration. Held as part of the intra-Africa 2026, the event brought together African officials, economic regulators, and international partners who called for common rules capable of safeguarding the continent's economic integration. Discussion focused on the African market of an estimated 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. According to AFCFTA authorities, the gradual removal of trade barriers cannot achieve its full impact without continental regulatory mechanisms to combat cartels, abuses of dominant market positions, and other distortions of competition.
If we have open borders, but we allow cartels to partition markets behind those open borders. If we eliminate tariff duties, as we are set to do by the year 2030, we will trade at zero as the African continent, but permit dominant incumbents to destroy and to crush new entrants into the market. We will not succeed. We will have an incomplete market integration agenda. What is clear that we as Africans have got to prioritize is a complementarity of policies.
The Secretary General of the AFCFTA recalled that the African Competition Protocol, initiated in 2010 and adopted in 2023, provides for the creation of a continental authority tasked with regulatory a market of 1.4 billion people with an estimated GDP of $3.4 trillion. The framework will initially focus on the transport, logistics, digital, and e-commerce sector. During the panel discussions, experts raised the prospect of establishing a competition tribunal and an African competition network to strengthen the enforcement of competition rules across the continent. In this context, Togo, host country of the inaugural conference, reaffirmed its position among the 3 African states most advanced in the operationalization of the AFCFTA through the revision of its national strategy and the upcoming of the competition legislation.
L'intensification de la concurrence internationale.
The intensifying international competition highlights the challenges facing competition regulations and consumer welfare and provides an opportunity to adapt our mechanisms to ensure fair competition that protects both businesses and consumers. At the inaugural conference, Togo affirmed its ambition to become one of the Africa's key reference hubs in building the continental common market. Beyond legal and regulatory issues, stakeholders involved in implementing the AFCFTA share a strategic vision to build by 2030 a more integrated and competitive African economic space better able to support industrialization, investment, and the transformation of the continent's economies.
African heads of state, public decision makers, investors, and economic operators gathered in Lomé, Togo for the 3rd edition of intra-Africa 2026. For 3 days, the Togolese capital hosted a continental platform dedicated to boosting intra-African trade and accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Docres Mbogal Evina.
For 3 days, political leaders, industrial players, investors, and African financial institutions discussed mechanisms capable of accelerating the continent's economic transformation under the AFCFTA framework. Organized by the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area in partnership with the government of Togo, Biashara Africa 2026 focused mainly on industrial competitiveness, regional infrastructure, trade logistics, and African value chains. 6 years after the entry into force of the Continental Trade Agreement, 50 African states have ratified the AfCFTA and 26 are already trading under its preferential rules. In 2024, intra-African trade reached $220 billion, an increase of 12.5% in 1 year. Projections from the AfCFTA Secretariat now estimate that trade volumes could reach $230 billion by 2027.
Aujourd'hui encore, les coûts logistiques.
Today, logistics costs in the region remain among the highest in the world. Non-tariff barriers persist and border delays slow down trade flows.
Les délais aux frontières ralentissent les échanges.
Discussions highlighted the weight of logistical constraints on African trade. Despite regulatory progress in recent years, transport costs, customs, procedures, and difficulties in the movement of goods continue to limit continental economic integration. The automotive, textile, digital, agro-industrial, and infrastructure sectors were identified as strategic drivers capable of supporting stronger industrialization and enhancing the local transformation of African raw materials.
Progress on rules of origin, negotiations, including the breakthrough in sectors such as the automotive sector, which is set to drive our industrial development as a continent, as well as breakthrough on textiles and clothing, indicate that the elements that are required to foster and build industrial development in Africa are steadily being achieved.
Promoters of the AfCFTA have called for increased African industrial investment in order to expand the continent's production capacity. The AfCFTA Secretariat estimates that the integration of regional value chains is one of the key drivers that could sustainably increase the share of intra-African trade, which remains below 20% of total continental trade.
La zone de libre-échange continentale africaine.
The AfCFTA represents a strategic response to the continent's challenges. Africa has a market of over 1.4 billion people and must transform this demographic potential into industrial and commercial power.
Tout à l'heure par le président d'Afreximbank.
Beyond trade, Biashara Africa 2026 also focused on African economic sovereignty, the digitalization of trade, the financing of regional infrastructure, and the development of logistics corridors. Togo has particularly invested in the autonomous port of Lomé, logistics platforms, and digital services modernization to strengthen its position in West African trade flows, with a continental GDP estimated at over $3.4 trillion and a population expected to exceed 2.5 billion by 2050. According to the United Nations, the AfCFTA now seeks to transform Africa into an integrated market capable of supporting industrialization, investment, and global competitiveness.
On to our regional news on May 25, 2026. On the occasion of Africa Day, the President of the Republic of Congo, Denis Sassou Nguesso, announced the elimination of visa requirements for all African nationals. Effective January 1, 2026, Congo thus joins Benin, Ghana, Rwanda, Seychelles, Gambia, and Togo, at least 6 African countries that have adopted or announced a visa-free entry policy for all citizens of the continent. This is a strong political signal in a context of accelerating continental integration.
In the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the Republic of Congo and Togo have taken a new step toward free movement across the continent. Both countries have announced the removal of visa requirements for African nationals. In the Republic of Congo, the visa exemption for African citizens was announced by the authorities on Africa Day, May 25, 2026. The measure, which will come into effect on January 1, 2027, is part of the government's commitment to accelerating continental integration. I take this opportunity to announce today that starting from January 1, 2027, entry into the Republic of Congo will no longer require a visa for all African people. In Togo, since May 18, 2026, African nationals have been able to enter the country without a visa for stays of up to 30 days. This measure aims to strengthen regional integration and mobility across the continent as part of the implementation of the ASEFTA. I am convinced that through this decision, other countries will follow suit so that from now on, when going to Kenya, Ethiopia, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, and any elsewhere in Africa as citizens of this continent, we will no longer need this formality. This decision comes at a time when free movement of people is considered a key driver of economic development and continental integration. They are aligned with the vision of the African Continental Free Trade Area and the African Union's Agenda 2063.
En ce qui nous concerne, et en lien avec la consolidation de notre engagement.
As far as we are concerned and in line with strengthening our commitment to the vision of the founding fathers of African independence, the freedom and emancipation of African peoples, the acceleration of the free movement of people and goods across the continent, and the integration of states with ultimately the use of the single African passport.
L'intégration des États avec à terme l'usage d'un passeport africain unique.
Togo and the Republic of Congo thus join other African countries committed to removing visa requirements for citizens of the continent. This momentum strengthens the vision of an integrated Africa focused on free movement and the beauty of the common market.
Botswana officially joined the World Federation of Diamond Bourses as an affiliate member at the International Summit held in Gaborone on May 18, 2026. This strategic membership reinforces the country's ambition to establish itself as a global leader in ethically sourced natural diamonds. At the event, Botswana's Minister of Mines and Energy, Bongolo Kenewondo, made it clear that Botswana now intends to play a major role across the entire value chain of the sector and no longer simply be one of the world's largest producers. Christian Bellabo.
By adopting a new strategic approach to the diamond sector, Botswana officially joined the World Federation of Diamond Bourses on May 18, 2026. This initiative aims to transform the country into a global hub for diamond trade and marketing, moving beyond mere mining. Faced with a surplus of stock, domestic production has been reduced to 15.1 million carats. Diamonds are of paramount importance to the Botswana economy, accounting for nearly 30% of GDP, around 80% of exports, and over 90% of export earnings, according to the World Bank.
We wish to close the gap that exists between us as a producing country and trading centers and ensure that we build symbiotically trading centers, value chains that will not only develop Botswana but continue to.
Faced with growing competition from synthetic diamonds, which are much cheaper and are gaining market share, officials at the World Federation of Diamond Bourses view the membership of Botswana, a major producer, as a key strategic asset for the sector. This integration aims to support the industry's effort to maintain the value and appeal of natural diamond amongst buyers.
The WFDB represent the world major diamond bourses, the trading center that are backbone of international diamond commerce. Today, for the first time, Botswana and Angola, two of the world's most important producing nations, are seated at the table where the future of our industry.
Botswana is banking on ethical diamonds to bolster its international image, with stones marketed as development diamonds, mined responsibly and conflict-free. Thanks to diamond revenues, per capita income has risen from around $100 to over 8,500. As Africa's leading producer, the country is also home to the world's richest diamond mine, which extracts between 12 and 15 million carats annually and generates 60 to 70% of Botswana's revenue.
Botswana is entering a new era of economic renewal, a Botswana that must compete globally while remaining proudly rooted in its values. Diamonds remain central to that end.
The diamond sector is, however, facing a global crisis. Demand is slowing, prices are falling, and synthetic diamonds are gaining ground. Botswana's mining revenue have fallen to around $770 million or 47% of usual levels, compared with a historical average of over $1.9 billion in 2025. For the Botswana government, the challenge is now to diversify the economy whilst producing the value of natural diamonds. The 49th Ordinary Session of the African Union Executive Council is scheduled for June 24 to 25, 2026 in El Alamein, Egypt. The meeting, which brings together the foreign ministers of the Pan-African Organization's member states, will proceed to the 8th biannual coordination meeting between the African Union and the Regional Economic Communities, RECs, scheduled for June 27, 2026. Under the leadership of the current chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, African foreign ministers will examine critical issues focused on trade, sovereignty, regional integration, and sustainable development. The discussions will be directly aligned with the Agenda 2063 and the African Union's 2026 theme dedicated to sustainable access to water and safe sanitation on the continent. The coastal city of El Alamein in Egypt hosts the 8th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union, Regional Economic Communities and Regional Mechanisms from June 24 to 27, 2026. This edition will focus on the African Union's development priorities. African leaders will assess the progress of major continental initiatives including conflict resolution, peace and security, infrastructure and energy development, the promotion of free trade, and the Visa-Free Africa initiative to stimulate regional integration. Water and sanitation management, the central theme for the 2026 within the African Union. The 44th Annual Southern African Transport Conference, ACTEC 2026, will take place from July 6 to 9, 2026 in Pretoria, South Africa. This major event of the transport sector in Southern Africa will bring together engineers, researchers, public decision makers, logistic operators, and regional institutions. Discussions will focus on the modernization of transport infrastructures, sustainable mobility, the digitalization of logistics systems, and regional integration. The event aims to propose innovative solutions to improve connectivity and support economic growth in the SADC region.
Gainmore Zanamwe, Director of Trade Facilitation and Investment Promotion at Afreximbank, is at the forefront of efforts to strengthen Africa's trade integration and investment flow as the continent advances under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Through his role at the African Export-Import Bank, he focuses on improving cross-border trade, facilitating investment, and supporting the development of regional value chains aimed at driving industrialization and economic transformation across Africa. Lucrece Mbokol Evina.
Congested roads, slow custom procedures, and some of the highest logistics costs in the world, these long-standing obstacles have hindered trade between African countries for years. Today, the AfCFTA aims to reverse this trend. The objective is to enable African economies to trade more with one another, reduce dependence on external imports, and develop regional value chains. According to several African institutions, intra-African trade could exceed $230 billion in the coming years, driven by the acceleration of the Continental Agreement.
Under the AfCFTA, we are creating a single market. We are not focusing on competition, but it's a collaboration that the spirit of collaboration is what we are trying to facilitate through regional or continental value chains. So the credit fund will actually provide support to get into these key value chains.
To support this transformation, Afreximbank is deploying several financial and logistical instruments. The Pan-African Development Bank says it has mobilized tens of billions of dollars to support intra-African trade, regional infrastructure, and industrial investment. Among its priorities are the modernization of trade corridors, the reduction of border delays, and the implementation of African payment systems in local currencies. Initiatives such as PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, are designed to significantly reduce cross-border transaction costs.
We actually realize that when countries are going to embark on removing tariffs, tariff liberalization, some of them may lose revenue. So we actually set up a 10 billion AfCFTA adjustment fund, and Afreximbank has already contributed $1 billion United States dollars to that, and we've also also put a seed grant of about 10 million that will anchor what we call the base fund that will deal with the tariff revenue compensation.
Another major issue is the industrialization of the continent. The AfCFTA is not only about increasing trade flows, it also aims to transform Africa's raw materials locally. Automotive, agro-processing, textiles, cultural industries, and mineral beneficiation, several sectors have been identified as strategic to generate more value addition on the continent. Major African economic events such as the intra-African trade fair held in Algiers in 2025 illustrate this momentum. The event reportedly generated tens of billions of dollars in trade and investment agreements.
Afreximbank, as you know, the core mandate is to actually facilitate and promote intra-African trade. And this is basically trade amongst ourselves. As you may be aware, intra-African trade is very low, around 15 to 18%. And platforms like these are very good because you will actually discuss some of the key challenges that are affecting intra-African trade, and most importantly, focus on the solutions on how to deal with those. And at Afreximbank, we are proud to have been a key partner of the AfCFTA.
The success of the AfCFTA will now depend on the ability of African states to translate political commitments into concrete results on the ground, an economic integration process that will permanently reshape the continent's trade balance and redefine Africa's place in the global economy.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for following this edition of the African Union Journal. Stay tuned to Africa 24 English for the best African news in streaming and replay on our website, africa24tv.com, on Play Store, on the My Africa 24 app, and across all our digital platforms.
On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank.